Hi, I'm Jeffrey Reddick, and on my tombstone, it's going to say from the creator of Final Destination while I'm in my Final Destination. And I'm excited to be here with Mr. Death Breath today. So, how are you?
Hey guys, Mr. Deathbreath. This is a long video. It is an hour and 21 minutes. I know that not everyone has the time to watch an hour and 21 minute video, so let me give you the timestamps for all the Final Destination talk. Jeffrey and I talk about the first iteration of the script at 29 minutes and 36 seconds in the video, and that ends in 33 minutes in the video. So 29 minutes is the start of the conversation and 33 minutes is the end. And all things Final Destination talk starts at 38 minutes and 38 seconds and ends at an hour, 8 minutes, and 30 seconds. Big thank you to Jeffrey Reddick, who was amazing. Definitely wonderful to talk to. If you do stick around for the video, I guarantee you'll find it enthralling and exciting. Jeffrey's a wonderful person and has a lot of insight on his career and how he came to be in the position he is and how he created the Final Destination franchise. Guys, thanks for your support. Please turn on post notifications. Please subscribe. And as always, I'll see you soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're here with the one and only Jeffrey Reddick, the creator of Final Destination. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, brother. I'll have some of what you're having.
It's called ADD. I think you have to get it diagnosed.
I have that. Why am I not as perky as you, damn it?
I'm an anomaly. I don't know what to say. Okay, so my first question.
Yes.
What did you want to be when you grew up, and why was it a filmmaker? Okay, but seriously, what did you want to be when you grew up?
No, honestly, I wanted to be an actor. Like I've always.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah. Like one of my cousins told me when I was like 5 years old. She asked me what I was going to be when I grew up, and I said a movie star. Like so, acting was my dream from the day I came out of the womb, and it got crushed when I moved to New York. Only because of the reality of casting back in the early 90s. Because I'm not white, honestly, my agent was like, there's not a work out there. I don't know what to do with you. Like, you don't rap.
Wow.
And she didn't say this as an insult. She was just like, you don't rap, you don't play basketball. Like, there just aren't roles for you. And then I was like, well, screw it. Then I'll write stuff for myself. And then I kept writing teenagers getting killed. And then I'm obviously not a teacher anymore. So, yeah, like I've just always loved films. It was always an escape for me growing up. I love the fantasy world. I loved horror. This has been my call. I'll say it's been my calling. Like I knew from I have no plan B. I was joking with my friends the other day where they're like, well, with COVID, everything slowed down. And like, I don't know what else to do. And I'm like, well, I've never had a plan B. Like I was going to work in film one way or the other. So I've just kind of shifted as the, business has shifted. So yeah, I'm living the dream, which is great. But one of these days I'll have like the production company and the mansion and all the millions in the pool and stuff like that. Still working on that part of it, but I'm still very grateful to be doing what I love.
To add to what you're saying, I mean, you've already made a monumental splash in not only the horror genre but the film genre. I mean, you reinvented horror with Final Destination, so you really did something incredible.
Yeah, and I do. I all sincerity, even as a fan, like if I were to die tomorrow, like I could be happy knowing that something I did made a mark on the industry in the genre specifically. I don't want that to be the only mark I make, but what a blessing to actually have something turn into what Final Destination did. So I'm eternally grateful for New Line Cinema for believing in the project, for Craig Perry, who's been the Godfather project, for Warren Zide, who's the producer, for Chris Bender, who's a friend that took it to them. I'm just very grateful. And for Wes Craven for making Nightmare on Elm Street, which made me go from like loving horror films to being obsessed with horror films. And that movie is like my favorite film. It got me in touch with New Line Cinema. There's so many angles where it's affected my life that I can never not thank Wes Craven for being Wes Craven.
Okay, so I gotta say, this is amazing. We actually jumped a bunch of questions because you answered them all in one go. And you brought me to a great question. No, you're awesome. You're awesome. With all my guests, I always tell them it's like improv, right?
Yeah.
I throw something out and you go and you just keep going. So you run as fast as you want. So Online with Freddy.
Yes. Nice.
Yeah. So I love Freddy. I
That
love
is
Freddy
so
so
cool.
much. Yeah. Okay. So I read online that essentially you wrote a version of a Nightmare on Elm Street script when you were a youngin, when you were a little Reddick,
Yes.
and you sent it to Bob Shea at the time. And tell me more about that. Please take it away.
Like I love this story because it's just you know, it just shows you how crazy this business can be. But yeah, I grew up in Eastern Kentucky, so I'm like, you know, this 14-year-old hillbilly. There's nothing about film, nothing about the business. But me and my friend Tony Calhoun would watch horror movies. We were too poor to pay to go see it at the drive-in, so we would sit on his dad's truck and turn the CB on and watch movies.
Oh,
Don't
nice.
pirate movies, kids. Do not pirate movies. But we watched a double feature of Alone in the Dark and Nightmare on Elm Street. And so I saw Alone in the Dark and I'm like, oh, that's scary. Didn't have high hopes for Nightmare on Elm Street, only because in the previews, I found out later on that the work print had got washed out in some process. So the original film print was more washed out. So on the TV commercials, it looked a little cheap. So I was like, yeah, whatever. Scared the crap out of me. Like,
Yeah.
Freddy was amazing. You know, the Tina not being the lead threw me for a loop.
Yeah. The red herring.
Heather Langenkamp was such an amazing
Yes.
final girl. Just there's nothing not to love about Johnny Depp in a half shirt. I mean, there's nothing not to like about that movie. So I went home and I typed up a prequel idea on my typewriter, and I found out the address for New Line Cinema in New York, and I sent it to Bob Shea, and they sent it back to me with a, you know, we don't accept unsolicited material kind of form letter. So I wrote him back and I said, look, sir, I've spent like $3 on your stuff. So I think you can take 5 minutes and read my story.
Oh, damn. Way to be forward.
I know. Well, you know, I wish I still had that friggin' hillbilly gumption in me now, but he read it and he got back to me and he was very encouraging. He's like, you know, you've got a great imagination and a lot of talent, but you need to like study and harness, you know, very encouraging. So I stayed in touch with him and his assistant, Joy Mann, who is another person I give credit to. And they would send me scripts and they would send me tchotchkes, which I didn't even know what tchotchkes were until Joy's like, here's
I don't know what a tchotchke is. Can you tell us, the rest of yours?
It's just like it's like little trinkets and things, but it's a Jewish phrase for like, you know, here's some tchotchkes from a movie, you know. So it's like, so they would send me stuff and they would read my scripts and give me only positive feedback, thank goodness, because I found some coverage from when I started working there from some of my first scripts. The coverage was like awful. Like if I'd have read that coming out of the gate, I would have been like, you know, that's why it's always good to keep learning and getting better, because your first 5 scripts are going to be awful. They just are, because you don't know the craft.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen, from Jeffrey Reddick, Truth Bombs.
Yes. But when I went to New York at 19, you know, I got an internship at New Line for the summer, and then I was going to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and I got an acting agent, and so I was like, I'm going to stay, and then I'm going to be a movie star within 2 years. And then cut to many, many years later, getting Final Destination off the ground. It was actually 10 years. They always say that you should be willing, if you're an artist or want to work in the arts, you have to be willing to dedicate 10 years of your life to it. Doesn't mean that you're going to become a huge success in 10 years, but it means that you have to be willing, because there's so many people out there going after the same thing. There's people that you have to compete with who are talented. You have to compete with people whose dad runs a studio or a production company, who's writing scripts, who's not talented, but because somebody famous is their parent, you have to do. There's so much. So you have to be willing to like be like, I can put 10 years of my life into this, even if it's like 10 years of waiting tables and eating mac and cheese. And it was 10 years till the year I graduated high school that I sold Final Destination.
Wow.
Oh.
Okay, so let's take a little Freddy Krueger detour for a minute.
Yes.
Since you're a fan, I'm a fan. I feel like we have the same energy. Hold on. Like, you know what I mean when I say that, okay? Like, it's real, okay? So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. Anyways.
The funny thing is, when we had the original Freddy glove in the office at New Line, and of course I'm like freaking out, playing with it, and it was real, and it was loose. The blades were the blades like hit me right under the eye, like on my skin. So thank God I didn't blind myself. That would have been a story. But that's awesome. Yeah, the one thing I have not done is bought a Freddy glove yet, but I want to get it in where I can put it somewhere safe. Like
Yeah.
in something where nobody can like mess with it, because I know everybody will come over wanting to play with it.
Yeah. So like indirectly, you were like one of his unofficial victims if you count the meta film, Wes Craven's A New Nightmare. You know.
Yes. He
So it's kind of an honor.
He almost blinded me.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go down this Freddy detour. I'm having too much fun. Okay. What is your favorite film in the Nightmare franchise? And we are including Freddy versus Jason because it's really more of a Freddy film.
Well, my favorite's always going to be the original, just because I can't separate how groundbreaking it was, especially when you think of budget, like how much he was able to accomplish. Nancy, in my opinion, was one of the best written final girls.
Totally.
For a long time. Like, no matter, I love all the, Amy Steele's and Jamie Lee Curtis's and A.B. King's and so many more that I'm going to forget. So don't, hate me for it. But Nancy was the first final girl where she figured out what was going on, rigged up a plan, went into the nightmare to pull Freddy out, and then beat the shit. Like she was like proactive from pretty early on. Whereas in most horror films, it's like the final girl is like the last one standing.
Right. Like she's a victim until the last like 10 minutes.
Until the very last minute.
Yeah.
And Nancy wasn't that. So, yeah. And then, I've got to, and I love Wes Craven's New Nightmare too. I thought that was a phenomenal movie. And this is going to be like it's so funny. We might as well just talk about all of them, if you don't mind. Like,
hey, it's your time. I'm happy to have you here, so please.
Nightmare 2, I didn't like it when it came out because it broke all the Freddy rules.
That's my problem with it. Yeah.
Broke all the Freddy rules. And the thing that pisses me off too is like, when it got lambasted when it came out for being so gay, David Chaskin blamed Mark Patton, the actor. He's like, I didn't write this. I'm like, what do you mean you didn't write it? Bob Shea played the guy at a leather bar that picks up a coach and then gets naked and gets his ass whipped with a towel. Like, Mark Patton didn't do that. You did that.
Right.
So
way to pass the buck.
So 2, I didn't care for because it broke the rules. 3, I really enjoy, but I'm also a big X-Men fan, and I know that Wes Craven's original script was much bigger and they couldn't afford it. So I love it, but I wish the Dream Warriors had more to do besides have one quick scene and then he kills them anyway.
Yeah, it's true.
So I know a lot of people don't like that. I don't think the second one is the best one, or the third one. And I think Rennie Harlan directed the fuck out of part 4. Like, I think that movie's like beautiful. I hate that they kill all the Dream Warriors at the beginning.
That was a bad move. Yeah.
Such a bad move. But it's a beautiful film to watch. And
great cinematography. I love the stylistic approach.
Yeah. Just so stylized. And then, Alice, I love the Dream Master. So those were fun. Freddy's Dead. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that one.
But come on, the Carlos scene, man. When he's sneaking behind Carlos.
No,
nice knowing you, Carlos.
Yeah, it went really campy fun. It went super, super campy. Freddy Jason, I like a lot. It's funny because I worked at New Line at the time. And
man.
So there were like a ton of scripts that came in. And I read some of them that were brilliant. And I actually even pitched one too. And they said my take was too dark. And it's not. It's a business. I don't take it personally. But I remember I was listening to a meeting where they were meeting with these hot new writers in Hollywood, and I could hear them, and they were like, "Well, we've got Freddy Jason. Would you guys be interested in doing that?" And they're like, "Yeah." And they're like, "You're hired." I'm like,
"What?
Really? That's that easy?"
Check his resume, dude.
But that was a fun movie. That I did enjoy that movie. I thought it turned out well. It was just, I remember it was such. I can't remember how much New Line spent on that fucking movie. Like, all the A-list horror writers in town like wrote scripts for it. Like, so there were so many. So I did enjoy where it ended up. I thought it was a lot of fun.
I do want to ask really quickly, if you don't mind. I heard a rumor, and maybe you can confirm or deny this, that ultimately they were going to have, one of the script ideas was to have Freddy and Jason be pulled down and then have the Hell Priest or Pinhead from Hellraiser saying, "Gentlemen, we have a problem." Is that true, or is that just some like really good story that got made up?
I don't know exactly. That is definitely a possibility, because I know there were times where New Line was kind of looking at the, bringing the Evil Dead franchise on, doing that, like Jeff Katz, who's kind of like the LA version of me, I would say. Well, I'm in LA now, but he read my story about writing Bob Shea, and then not decades, I'm not that old. Centuries later.
He's really dead in final listening.
He wrote Bob a similar letter and got his line in LA, where I was working in New York. And he wrote this really cool Freddy versus Jason versus Ash story that became a comic book.
Yeah, I didn't hear about that.
And I know that there was also talk about doing the Pinhead thing too. So I'm absolutely sure that there was a iteration of that going around.
Okay, so since we covered the you're going to know my bias in about 2 seconds, so I'm trying not to do this. Since we covered the core franchise, how did you feel about the reboot?
And I'm always just honest, because obviously this is my favorite movie of all time. So I thought I was going to hate it with every fiber of my being going in. And then I saw the Friday the 13th remake, and that movie annoyed me. I loved the first 20 minutes of it. And I loved other parts of it. And my friend Travis plays like the jerk in there, the blonde asshole.
He's gosh, he's okay. It's funny because I haven't seen him in anything else, but every time I see him, and he's always that asshole character, and I'm like, this guy's so good at that role.
And the funniest thing is, he's the sweetest guy in the world. And Michael Bay puts him in stuff a lot, but he's the nicest guy in the world. But he's just so. In the convenience store retailer's Jared Padalecki, can you hurry it up here? And it's like his sister's missing. I love that.
Yeah, he's such an asshole. I love it.
So I was actually disappointed in Friday the 13th. So then I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna hate Nightmare on Elm Street, and I didn't hate it.
Okay, cool.
But because I really was, sometimes you say your expectations were so high. Mine were so low that I didn't hate it. I'll tell you the thing that irks me is, and this happened before I saw it, so that's why I thought I was going to hate it more. Runa Mari was complaining in some interview that she got the job.
Yeah, I heard about that.
She did an interview where she's like, I walked out of that and I was so upset because I knew they were going to cast me. And I'm like, well, it shows, because you're horrible in the fucking movie. And also, it's just, how many actresses would have killed to play Nancy in the Nightmare on Elm Street movie?
Man, I would have seriously, I would have maybe taken off the tip of my pinky just to be a victim. You know what I mean? Like, come on, let me be the corpse in the corner, but just make it sure it's me.
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't like that they tried to go the, is Freddy innocent or is he guilty kind of route with it. But Katie Cassidy's amazing. Thomas Decker's amazing.
Kyle Gallner. I wish he would come back.
Kyle, oh my God, what's his name?
Gallner?
Yes. Kyle Gallner's amazing. Connie, the whole cast is amazing except for Nancy. So I enjoyed it more than I thought, and that's not, I'm not trying to have my cake and eat it too. It's just, I really thought I was going to hate it. And then I watched it. I'm like, I was more angry when I left Friday the 13th.
Well, they turned Jason into Leatherface. Just give it the ambiguous. How is he appearing behind me when I was just in front of him? You know what I mean? It's like the fact that he had a tunneling system. It's like, if you just cut out the tunneling things with him running under his intricate, El Chapo type tunnel system, I'll be okay. But they have to have that, and it ruined it for me. It's just like, come on, man. It's
like okay, Jason's like a weed farmer now, I guess, and protecting his crop.
I didn't even think of it that way. That is hysterical. I thought that just happened to grow there. I guess that doesn't make any sense. He's a weed farmer.
But I thought that opening was brilliant. The opening was brilliant. The opening 20 minutes.
All right, so since you are the man, you wrote one of the best horror movies ever made. Let's take a step. One of the best movies ever made. Period. It's really up there on top 200 for sure. How would you make your Freddy reboot, and who would you cast as Freddy? And let's keep it within the current landscape because it's too easy to go back.
Oh, so you're like, no Robert Englund? No, I'm kidding.
No, Robert England. Robert England had put up the glove, and I respect it.
Yeah. Well, and also, thank you so much for the praise. I also do have to give James Wong and Glenn Morgan credit on Final Destination as well, because they came on, they rewrote, my script and directed it. So it was a group effort there. Like I take full credit for the concept and the story, but the movie that ended up becoming on screen was a group effort. So I always like to give them kudos too, because they worked on some of my favorite X-Files episodes.
X-Files is a great show.
Yeah, and it's Millennium and Space Above. They've done some great work. So, but with if I were to redo Nightmare on Elm Street, I would want to do like a kind of a reboot of Dream Warriors, because again, I think the technology is kind of caught up to where we need to be now, where people could utilize their dream abilities and actually, fight.
That's awesome. I dig that.
And I would still want to bring like, it's weird with the because I'm still a big fan of if you can pay some respect to the original, do it. So I would still love to have Heather Langenkamp involved, and Jacob. Maybe her son's like older now and has like dream powers, and
Oh, that's a great idea. I see that. That's awesome.
But I've been talking, because I've done a couple of things, and I've talked to some people about different remakes and stuff, and sometimes it is better, I think, if you're gonna remake something, to kind of start fresh, to like let fans go back and capture the original. I'm just a big fan of, like, I think Halloween, the new Halloween kind of picked up. Well, I don't think they should have ignored H2O, but that's a whole other.
H2O is a masterpiece. I love that movie. So.
Which one, H2O?
Yeah, I thought that was such a definitive ending.
I don't know why, and I don't know why they honestly just didn't pick up after that, because I talk a lot.
You're amazing. You understand, you're everything. Talk as much as you want, please.
Oh,
you don't have to apologize about everything. Have any opinion. Anyone that's watching, they're on here because of you, and they're like, if you go, people aren't going to agree with my opinion. People want to hear your opinion. You're Jeffrey Reddick. Okay, you're good. You're the man.
It's funny because with Halloween H2O, it tracked very clearly. So if you picked her up 20 years after that, you could have still had Josh Hartnett off to college, or you could have figured out some way but to pick it up 40 years later, the logic that you have to buy after having seen Jamie Lee Curtis go through what she did in H2O, you have to buy the logic that this woman had, as horrible as it is, had two friends get killed when she was a teenager, and the killer chased her for a little bit, and then her whole life has been ruined and destroyed. And I guess that can certainly happen, but again, we saw such a really smart handling of that in H2O. They should have just picked it up 40 years later. And then Michael has no reason to be going after her now. It's like,
yeah, I agree.
So
it's completely necessary.
Those were great. I mean, I still watch it. Like, it's still fun to watch. But I'm like, and what the hell's with this doctor? Like.
Yeah, that irritated me. I remember being in the theater thinking, "Are you freaking kidding me? If this is gonna happen, I'm gonna hate the movie." And thankfully, it just kind of took a weird turn and then kind of got back on course. I'm like, okay.
And then I'll quit bitching, because trust me, I bitch about my own movies. And anybody watching out there going, why the hell is he bitching about anything? Because he wrote this movie. Trust me, I bitch about my own stuff. But making the boyfriend, like, he's the super nice boyfriend the whole movie. But just because they need to get rid of her phone so her mom can't call her, they have him make out with some girl so they can fight and he can throw her phone in the cheese. It's like,
that's bad motivation.
Yeah, it's just like, well, she can't have a phone. Well, let's have her boyfriend kiss somebody and we'll throw the fuck out. But all that being said, I saw the trailer for the new one, and I'm going to be first in line to see it.
I haven't seen anything. I wasn't the biggest fan of 2018. It just felt unnecessary. Like a lot of things you were saying, I agree with. Everything you were saying, I agree with, actually. And as for the new one, I'm just trying not to watch it. I'm just going to go based off what I've heard. Everyone's told me, don't watch the trailer or ruin the movie. And I'm like, since I do spoiler-free reviews, let's just not watch the trailer and just go in blind. I will say don't watch the trailer, because I think they pretty much,
even though they're quick flashes, they pretty much show everybody that's going to be killed almost getting killed. So you're like, okay.
Okay, so the question that we lost: who would you pick as Freddy? Who would be your Freddy?
Who would I pick?
Okay,
as Freddy?
any actors on the table except for Jackie Earle Haley, who did a phenomenal job in the reboot, even though the reboot wasn't very good, and of course the man, the myth, the legend, Robert Englund, off the table. But everyone else, they have to be alive and they have to be active.
I remember I was talking so I could think about that, but then I forgot to think about it when I was talking.
Right on.
Like who? Let's keep talking, and I'll process. Let me just think of who the actor is because I don't want to.
Well, how about this? Yeah, let me just throw one in that I heard, and I think it's an interesting one. What do you think of Kevin Bacon?
Oh God, Kevin Bacon's amazing.
He's amazing. I think he can pull it off. He's talented
Kevin
enough.
Bacon turned. Yeah, we wanted to get Kevin Bacon for one of my newer movies, and he passed on it. So Kevin Bacon is.
Damn you, Kevin Bacon.
Kevin Bacon is but yeah, like Kevin Bacon would kill it. Yeah, he's amazing.
Such a good actor.
Such a good actor, and he's got all the. If you watch all of his movies, like he can play evil. Like he's such an ass in Invisible Man.
Yeah, totally.
But he's also smart, and he's got a lot going on, and he'll get naked, which is always nice. Not that you want to see Freddy naked, but what the hell?
Hey, I'm sure there's an audience for it, man.
There is. You know there is.
I mean, in Supernatural, there's fan fiction where Sam and Dean aren't brothers, but they're lovers. So, I mean, come on, man.
Did you see the episode where they made fun of that?
I don't remember. I saw the whole thing. I don't remember, though.
There was an episode where they went to this town where the students were putting on Supernatural.
Oh, yeah! I think it was like season 9.
What are you guys doing?
I love that whole thing. Let's do an intro. That's not good enough. And they go through every single intro of the show before they show the final intro. I'm like that. I was laughing so hard I couldn't breathe. I'm like, the show's back on track again after 4 miserable seasons.
Yeah, even the I was there for I just love that show.
Man, the Leviathan demons in season 7 was terrible. I couldn't take it. 7, 8, no, I think 6, 7, and 8 were terrible, and then 6, 7, 8, and 9 were terrible. Then 10 picked it up again. But 1 through 5 are just a masterpiece.
Yeah. And then when they brought Jack in, I think that really revitalized the show. And then I loved how I know the ending divided. And what doesn't divide fans?
It made me cry, man.
I love fans because they're so passionate. But this is also horror, comics, everything. A lot of people just love to you can't satisfy, and I've learned this the hard way, you can't satisfy anybody, but for the ending of that show, I think I'm not spoiling the ending, I'm just saying that I think it had to end the way that it ended because of all they've been through.
Yeah.
There was no other way to end that show.
Yeah.
How many times have they been to hell, and how many times did this happen?
It loses its power at the point that no one's. But you know what got me? I was watching the episode, and then I hear Cass talking, and then I hear him say something. He goes, "I love you." And I'm like, "Ah!" I'm like, "Stop!"
Yeah.
And I just started bawling. I'm like, "No!"
Yeah.
Like, that ripped me apart. He tells me he loves him. I was sobbing, man. That was hard.
Yeah, I got really the end of it was just like, it just made me feel sad, but it made me feel like it was nice. And again, not spoiling anything. It was a nice closure for all the characters. Yeah, I just thought they did a really good job in a very difficult. When a show runs that long,
yeah. It was a beautiful ending, and it was ended well considering everything. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Final Destination, but not yet, but kinda. Okay, so you said that you were writing your script while at New Line. So you were at New Line while you were writing your script. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
So what was the first iteration of that script like compared to what we received in the final product? If you can touch on that a little.
Well, it went through a lot of treatment phases first, because back in the day you could sell a treatment. You didn't have to write a script. And so the biggest change before the script was originally the characters were adults, so they didn't know each other. And then Scream came out, which I love too, and
masterpiece.
I adore him. Scream came out, and all of a sudden it's like, well, teenagers are hot again, so let's make them teenagers. I'm like, okay, cool. So then I made them teenagers. We wrote the script because we'd workshopped it so much with the treatment. Like, they went out to directors with the first draft, which was great. The biggest change, and this is where I give all kudos to Wong and Morgan, because in my draft, because I was very influenced by Nightmare on Elm Street, since death didn't kill them the first time and fucked up, it couldn't just go back and kill them again. So basically, it tormented each of the kids in these very kind of horrific ways until they committed suicide.
Oh wow, that's dark.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's a darker version.
It's a lot darker.
A lot darker. And I also, because they always say, why does this happen to this character? And blah, blah. So originally the concept was that Alex had the premonition because he wasn't supposed to die in the crash.
Interesting.
But everybody else was. But when James and Glenn came on, they were the ones that came up. I think they wanted to ground it more in reality. So they came up with the Rube Goldberg thing as Death's MO, which I think, the deaths still are close to what I had. Like, Todd died by hanging himself.
That is such a hard scene to watch every time.
Oh, it is. It is.
I just watched it again and I'm just like, damn, like that sucks.
Yeah. I think that's one of my, not favorite in a woohoo kind of way, but as far as like, because it's so awful. It's such an.
I mean, I guess it could be woohoo. I mean, let's be honest. We watch Socks. We want to see Dr. Gordon take off his leg eventually. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's so real, and Chad Denali, and it's just like it's so sad. So what I think that did, because I was very clear from the beginning, I never wanted to like show death. Because I didn't want to tie death to any kind of cultural background. I think that's why it's had the impact kind of internationally that it's had, is no matter what culture you're in, this isn't like Eastern or Western version of death. It's not a Christian version of death or a Muslim version of death. There's no form to it, so you can put whatever you want onto it.
It's a Jeffrey Reddick version of death. That's what it is.
You don't see it. The only thing is I beat myself up is because nobody can dress up like it, for Halloween.
Dude, how am I supposed to get a tattoo? Do you not realize I have so many horror tattoos? What do I do, get Final Destination? It's like, I was thinking about that today.
My horror friends that have like tattoos of every movie, they're like, yeah, we can't do one for yours. And I'm like, but I think the Rube Goldberg angle was the biggest change that was made. And I do think that it actually really helped elevate the movie, because then that's what got people looking around, like what's coming after me next. So my version was much more of in the Nightmare on Elm Street vein, which I think would have found a really good audience, but I don't think it would have found as wide of an audience as it did with that change in the MO for death.
Okay, so we're jumping around everywhere. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was a that was a preview of where we're going into the Final Station conversation. We're not there yet. I want to touch more on everything prior to getting you to the point of where you are now. So you said that you wanted to be an actor. So when you were younger, were you taking steps to be an actor? Like, were you auditioning or were you taking classes?
Yeah. I studied theater. I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York for the summer.
Wow.
Yeah, I got an agent.
How old were you at this point?
19.
Oh wow. Okay, so you're just like fresh out of high school.
Yeah. I was like, I was a sophomore in college, and then I was like, fuck that 10 years, because I got an agent, and I was getting a lot of background work and under 5 work and stuff like that, but it was just like meaty work or like guest star roles, especially for the show shooting in New York. Literally, if you had brown skin and you were going in for a guest star role, you were like a gangster or a pimp or a basketball player or a rapper. Like those were your options. My agent was like, I can try to get you a guest spot on the Cosby Show. But that's still, every non-white actor in the world was trying to get on the Cosby Show. And it would have been like, that'd been great on my resume. So yeah, I never gave up on acting. I still do like little cameos in most of my stuff, even if it's just like a one-liner or a couple of lines, just because I still like doing it. So, I still have the acting bug in me, and I'm going to probably do more of that, moving forward. But yeah, I just decided to write, because again, it's like in this business, the biggest mistakes I see people make are they give themselves an unrealistic timeline of when they have to succeed. And success to them usually means I'm going to be the star of a show, or I'm going to have a movie in theaters, which is just, that shouldn't be your level of success. If you're working, that's success, in this business. And so they give themselves a timeline. Or they're like, I'm going to try acting for 2 years. If it doesn't work out, I'm going to quit. Or if the acting thing doesn't work out, then I'm going to fall back on my second thing. But the good thing about this business is that, if you get into producing, you have a say in casting. So if you're an actor and you get into directing or producing, you can put yourself in stuff. If you're a writer, you can learn to direct. So there's a lot of ways to kind of, I hate to say skin the cat, but there's a lot of ways to skin the creative cat. Sorry, cat lovers. I have 2 cats here.
I'm so offended. I have 6 cats. You're terrible.
I know, and I try not
I'm
to
kidding.
be like,
I'm giving you a hard time.
Part of me is always like, screw you. I'm not going to be like super sensitive about what I say, but
No,
I know
you're good,
animals,
yeah.
especially. You have to make it clear that you're not skinning cats.
You're great. Don't worry.
So yeah, though, like I think if you have that acting bug, and it doesn't go away. I mean, I did so much theater, in college, and a little theater in New York, and there's just nothing like it.
Okay, so prior to your monumental success with Final Destination, did you write any other scripts that you were making? What other experience did you have? I'm sure you had so many things.
I wrote scripts that hadn't gotten made, but I wrote scripts that got close, because New Line especially, like, they had a process where you submit a script, a reader would read it. If it got a recommend, the development team would read it over like weekend read. So I had a couple of scripts actually make it to weekend read. Ironically, the first paying gig I got was to write a sequel to Pumpkinhead.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but the funny thing is,
wow.
the production company hired me to write one version, which was like a straight sequel, like taking everybody from the original. And then they had another version written that was like the one that got made, which has no real tie into Pumpkinhead. It's just like a story about some random witch, and I think she has sex with a monster and then has a baby. It's
80s horror.
So that was my first paid gig, actually, was writing that. But yeah, Final Destination was the first proper project that got picked up by a studio. And then I stayed at New Line because I'm just such a creature of habit. Like, I stayed at New Line. I sold it in 97. It came out in 2000. I stayed at New Line. And then when I sold the story for the second one to New Line, my boss was finally like, Jeffrey, we love you. We know you'd probably stay here forever, but you're a big boy writer now, so go out in the world and do your career. I'm like, okay.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting to the Final Destination stuff now. So just to build up the momentum, we had enough Final Destination foreplay, so let's just keep it going a little longer. Okay, so we'll save the best one for last. The best one, I don't need to tell you what the best one is. The best one's the first one, but let's just go out of order. Okay, so let's talk about Final Destination 2. How much of a hand did you have in creating the story?
That it's pretty much my story. Like, I will say Final Destination 2 is probably my favorite. And the reason why is I got to do all the stuff I love to do in sequels. I set up like a group of teenagers that you think are going to be the leads, and then I murder them all except for, Kimberly.
I love that. I murder them all.
I got to bring back, some original characters from the first one, which I always love in sequels. And even though it was a toss-away scene in a car, which I didn't necessarily like how it was executed, but the idea that the kids being alive when they should have been dead in the first movie had a ripple effect and actually changed the other lives of these people who were brought together, like, that stuff was like, just, to me, it's like, okay, I can open up the mythology, so we're not just remaking Final Destination again. So that one has so many elements that I love about a horror movie sequel, that's my favorite. Plus, I think, and also we were having a hard time coming up with an opening scene. They were going to originally, because the characters are always going to go to spring break, and I originally had them getting caught in a hotel fire. And Craig Perry, the producer, was like, we need something a little better. They actually used that for the comic book. But I'm from Kentucky, so when I was going back to visit my mom and my sister, I got behind a log truck, and I switched lanes, because I always do, because I hate those things. And then it hit me, and then I pulled off the highway, and I called Craig Perry, like, out of breath, like, what about a log truck on a freeway? He's like, well, slow down, I can't understand you. I said, what about a log truck driving down the freeway and the chain breaks and and he's like, that's the opening. And that was a scene where, again, movie making is such a collaborative thing. That was a scene that when David Ellis was hired to direct the film, he was another amazing person that we lost way too soon. Because he had such an extensive background in like stunts and special effects, we decided, no, we didn't write that scene out like beat for beat. We just like, it just says like unimaginable carnage, because we knew that David would create like an amazing set piece. And that's one of my favorite, like that, when I feel, what, like bored or like, I'll just put that scene on just because I love it. It's like so cool.
That is one of the best openings. And I mean, have you seen the memes that have been inspired by your nightmarish creation? You see all these people not behind this log truck saw Final Destination 2. And I gotta tell you, man, some of those scenes are so amazing. And understand, I don't mean to sound like a psychopath, but in terms of like being a horror lover and wanting to see the carnage and feeling uncomfortable because you don't want to be in that situation in real life, like some standout scenes to me that I love, obviously the log, but then also when the lady tries to hit the brake and she can't because of her water bottle. I removed water bottles from the bottom of my car because of that. Like, that's how much of a psychological effect it's had on me. It's like, it made me paranoid in a good way. Like, I'm prudent for my safety because of that film.
And I think, honestly, like, I should get some kind of award for, like, saving lives.
Yes, you should.
I should. I don't understand. Like, there's got to be some award out there that's not like...
Humanitarian award?
I should get a humanitarian award for sure.
You should. I nominate. Okay, anything you would change about Final Destination 2?
Originally, and it didn't work out schedule-wise, I had originally brought Alex and Clear back from the first films, and that's why I killed her, and he ended up being the one that lived throughout the movie, but schedule-wise, I couldn't make it work, and then they were, in my mind, they were dickish about how they handled his death.
Yeah, like, a brick to the face? Come on, dude.
Yeah, like,
that was so weak.
Insulting to fans and to that's honestly the only thing I would change, is like, I just think that was just not cool.
Would Alex have played the same role as Clear Rivers would have played, essentially?
They both came back.
So he would just be an addition to her, not so much anything different that would change the story?
So instead of Kimberly just meeting Kimberly, Clear and Alex both show up and help. So it was there was one less character as far as the victims go, but they came back and like helped them navigate.
But what about the padded room? How would that have worked? Like, would they have both been in a padded room?
No, they weren't in padded rooms. They had just been like off the grid, kind of like Alex in the first film. Yeah.
That makes sense. He seems to have had it figured out until it was a sort of a red herring, basically. So that makes sense. Okay, Final Destination 3. Another one that I'm a fan of. I can't tell you how many friends of mine or how many times I've been on a roller coaster. You live in Los Angeles, you said, right?
Yeah.
So you're familiar with Knott's Berry Farm?
Yes.
Have you been on High Tide? It's
no,
a roller coaster that takes you straight up? Okay. Well, there's that scene where Mary Elizabeth Winstead starts falling towards the track, and then her face hits, and it goes to a black screen. I've been on that loop, and I'm just like, this is it, this is it, this is it, this is it. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. That scene, I can't tell you how many people are uncomfortable because I don't like riding roller coasters anymore. Like, I used to love it, and now that I'm 33, I can't deal with it anymore. Yeah. And I keep thinking of that movie. So how much of a hand did you have in Final Destination 3?
After the second one, they kind of went off, and kind of did their own thing. So, okay. I mean, I know what's going on because I'm still very close with Craig Perry. And again, he's one of the most amazing producers I've ever worked with. So, like, we talk about ideas, we talk about things that are happening. But as far as like me being like in the mix, like 1 and 2 were the main ones for me. So I know what's going on behind the scenes. Like, I knew the twist in the 5th one. I knew that was, they were originally going to use that for the 4th one, and I'm so glad they waited till the 5th one.
Did you like Final Destination 3 as a fan?
I did like it. There was just and this is just my personal taste.
Sure.
Because I know what horror fans expect, and I tried to deliver it. But for me, a couple things I don't like. I don't like gratuitous nudity,
Sure.
unless you're gonna have it everywhere. Like if you're gonna get a girl naked, then have a guy naked too. So
sure.
that tanning bed scene is horrific as it is. It's an amazing scene.
Such a hard scene to watch.
It's a hard scene to watch, but then the build-up's like 3 minutes of these girls with their tops off, like
right, yeah,
yakking and bopping to music, and I'm like, obviously, the filmmakers made that more a little for themselves, I think, than for.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, I mean, what did they do in Jason Goes to Hell? They made it equal. So.
Yeah, and that's yeah, and I think that's what if you're ready, just do it, like that. Yeah. And I the only real issue I have with 3 is they decided for some reason to kill everybody at the end of part 3, and then they retroactively on the DVD extras for part 3 said that Kimberly and the cop from part 2 died.
Yeah, they fell into a wood chipper.
Yeah, but that was in the DVD extras, so in my mind, it's not part of canon. But
so they're still alive then.
But now they've kind of set that in. It's such a weird thing because James Wong and Liv Morgan came back from the first movie to do the third one, so they had Alex live in the first one, even though in the original version they shot he died, and the studio made them reshoot the ending. So I don't know if that was them like asserting themselves. I just don't like the fact that, because my idea is like, you don't know when your time to die is up. You can't cheat death, but you can delay it. So to then set up that everybody's going to die, that's kind of been how they've done the rest of the films now, is like, we got to kill everybody off at the end. And I just don't like that. Like, because it's like, well, then why are we watching a movie if we just know they're all going to die at the end of it,
That's a good point. I never considered that. Okay, so let's jump into 4. How did you feel about the humorous tone? Because this one went more campy for sure.
Yeah.
With Final 4.
You know what? I thought the camp was fine. I mean, there was also I'm really good friends with Eric Bress who did that one, and they had to rush that into production because of the writer's strike. So he had to like crank that script out like fast, and he's a good writer, so it's not like, you know what I'm saying? It's not like it's, but I know a lot of fans don't like that one as much because it is pretty over the top humor based. But I think it's got some great deaths in it, like, the pebble through the eye and the and
Nick Xander's death was rough. I'm like, would that really happen to me? Like, I'm afraid of drains now.
Yeah, I know. So the funny thing is I enjoy all of them. It's one of those things, and that's another thing you have to do in this business, is even the movies that you write that turn out bad, you've got to find something to like about them, or else you're just like, you just get bitter, And so I don't mind the humorous tone of that one, but it made me love. I wish they hadn't called it The Final Destination. That was my biggest issue, because I kept telling them, I'm like, if you call it The Final Destination, audiences are going to come in expecting answers like, who's Tony Todd? What is this? What is this?
We need to talk about that, by the way.
Okay.
But anyway, not yet.
Oh no, I know. I'll wait. I'll stay calm. But
I appreciate you.
But I'm like, people are going to expect all these answers, and we're not giving them any. We're just doing another Final Destination. So even though the box office went through the roof because people thought, oh my God, fans were really hard on it because it's like, it was just another Final Destination. Yeah. So when they went to the 5th movie, I really feel like they made the 5th one for the fans.
Yeah.
Like, they gave us a lot of Tony Todd. They gave us a lot of great death scenes. They gave us that gymnast scene is. Oh, dude. Oof. That's a rough one. I screamed out loud in the theater, and I don't at these movies. Like, I went to of it, and I just wasn't expecting that to end like it ended. I was like,
that's pretty awesome. Jeffrey Reddick, the creator of Final Destination, screaming at Final Destination 5. I love it.
So 5 to me felt like, oh, they're really taking the time to make this right for the fans. So yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts on the whole thing. Again, I enjoy all of them for different reasons. I have some issues creatively, but they're smaller, as you're going to have with anything that you work on. But as a franchise, I just think they're really entertaining, really fun, and yeah.
Okay, so that leads me into 5. Okay, I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but I just want to make sure we cover everything. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So overall, I think the kills in 5 were okay. They weren't as spectacular as the other ones. But what really makes up for the movie is the additions they added. So, for instance, if we were in the situation and you killed me, you would get whatever life I had.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to die of a heart attack in a week, then I loved that, and I also loved the twist. You said you only contributed to 1 and 2. You didn't have any input in that, because that was such a clever misdirection. How basically you're watching a prequel that looped to the original.
No, and I'm 99.9%, so I'll just say 100% sure that was Craig's idea about doing a film, and then we don't realize it's this, a prequel to the very end of it.
Yeah.
And again, I'm glad they didn't do it with 4, because I think it would have just been not a waste, but I just think I think 5 just felt again more like we're making this for the fans.
Oh, definitely.
So yeah, I went to see that so many times in the theater just to watch the ending when people start realizing that they're on the plane. It's just fun.
I love that.
Yeah.
And you know what? I love that they're just like, I love that you keep saying it's for the fans, because the ending, it made me laugh. Like, you want to make someone feel happy, put on AC/DC, right? And they have AC/DC playing, and it goes 5, 4, and they start doing like the greatest hits of death. And I'm just sitting there eating popcorn, laughing. I'm like, this movie is just like, it made it fun. And I'm like, why am I laughing at this? But it manages to have this really jovial effect with the dun 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 dun. I don't know, man. Like, I love it for that ending. I'm like, this is awesome. Like, look, they're all dying and they're counting it down with AC/DC.
I know.
All right, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. No more delays. Okay, so like Jaws with Steven Spielberg and Freddy with Dreams, you created Paranoia with Final Destination 1. So how does it feel to know you changed the horror landscape with Final Destination 1? I mean, okay, let me be clear with this, to be very specific. Not only is this an amazing horror film, but I love The Godfathers 1 and 2. If there was a top 100 list, Final Destination 1 would be on there with Nightmare on Elm Street, because it's a groundbreaking perspective change on film. You basically changed film with this movie. How does it feel to be a landmark?
It's one of I hate talking about myself.
No, please.
But the funny thing is, it was a really hard sell at the time, because literally the studio kept saying, we don't understand how you can make a movie with death as a killer. They can't fight it. They can't see it. We kept saying, me and the producer were like, that's the point. Like, that's the whole point of the film. And we had to threaten to take it to Dimension, which was New Line's competitor, before they bought it. So it was a hard fight to get the movie made. So it's not easy. Like, you're not thinking about groundbreaking anything. Like, I knew if it did well, there would be a sequel, but people were, if you notice, there wasn't a lot of marketing for the movie until it opened at number 3, I think, but then it climbed. And most horror movies drop like 50-some% after their opening weekend. This one, like, the whole week started going up at the box office, so we knew that word of mouth was spreading. So then they started pumping a lot of money into the marketing, and it became what it became. I was in a bubble because I was in New York, so I wasn't out in Hollywood doing all the Hollywood stuff where they would be like kissing my ass and throwing parties and doing all that stuff. I was like,
you deserve all of it, man. You still do.
In the gritty streets of New York working. So I was kind of in a bubble, and I know it did well, and I know they were doing a sequel. And I knew it was doing well internationally, but it doesn't hit you, I don't think, unless I don't know. Like, it didn't hit me that it had become like what it became until I came to LA and I was hearing people, not even in LA, but even in Kentucky, like, I was traveling to conventions and I would just be out and I would hear people going, oh my God, we just had a Final Destination moment. And I was like, and you want to go, I that was my movie, but then you're not going to, yeah. So it was years later for it to sink in, and it still hasn't sunk in. Like any of my friends and colleagues will tell you, like, dude, you need to fucking be swinging your Final Destination dick around, for lack of a better phrase.
Yes, yes.
But I'm like, I've always been a humble person. I've been raised to be humble.
Man.
I've been raised to be very humble. I'm still a country boy at heart, so so it's really nice. I mean, it really is. Just as a fan is where it hits me the most. Is like I grew up reading Fangoria. Still do. Now I've just graduated onto like Bloody Disgusting and all these other sites.
Nice.
But just as a horror fan, it's cool. It's very cool.
I think your friends are right. You need to swing your Final Destination dick around. You got to do that, man.
Yeah.
Seriously, dude. Like, that movie is perfect, man. I watched it maybe 4 times this month just because I just like it. I don't know, man. I love it. It's one of my favorite movies. And of course, to see if I missed anything. What can I ask Jeffrey that I missed, But it's just such a good film. Such a good film. So you were saying how with Final Destination 2, you were behind a log truck. You're like, what if these chains broke and these logs bounce? Were you on a plane when you were going to write Final Destination? I mean, how did that come to be? How did the story come to fruition?
Well, no, the funny thing is, the kernel of the idea, which didn't formulate till much later, I did get on a plane going to Kentucky, and I read an article. I know Kentucky. I want to shoot something there at some point because again, I'm from there, and both the first movie and the opening scene for the second movie sparked for me going there. But I was reading an article about a woman who was on vacation, and her mother said, "Don't take the flight you're on tomorrow. I have a bad feeling about it." So the woman changed her flight, and the plane ended up crashing. So I was reading this on a plane, and it didn't freak me out. It was just like, oh, that's interesting, and I didn't know what to do with the idea. But then when I was trying to get a TV agent, they told me I had to write a spec script for something that was on TV, and so X-Files was my favorite show on TV at the time. So I started thinking about that opening, or that idea for an opening, and I ended up writing a spec script where it was like Scully's brother Charles, that he was like the one brother we never really saw. The other brother was on there quite a bit, and then Charles was like, I don't know if he maybe popped up on one episode. So I had him have the premonition, and then the people that got off the plane with him started dying, and they thought he was killing them. And one of my friends, Mark Kaufman, I always throw these names out, but they're just really important people to me.
Of course.
Mark Kaufman read this pilot, and he's like, don't send this to the X-Files. Like, this is a feature. Like, this is a feature idea. So then I ended up hooking up with a friend of mine, Chris Bender, who worked at New Line, and had started working for Warren Zide and Craig Perry. And they were looking for horror. So I sent them the idea over, and they really liked it, and we developed it. So,
wow. I'm so glad it wasn't an X-Files episode, because I mean, just wow. Okay, so I want to add some tidbits as a fan here. That scene when Terry gets hit by the bus, I was 12 years old, maybe 13, and I told my dad at the time, and whoever else he was with, I'm like, hey, let's go see this movie. And I remember that I just couldn't relax. Like, that set my whole mood for the entire film. I'm like, if you could just walk out to the street and become splattered like a bug, anything's possible. And when that movie was over, I didn't know what I witnessed, but I knew it was amazing. Which brings me to the twist ending. Or not the twist, but the shocking ending. Was that always intended? How he's standing there and the billboard swings back right as the movie ends. I mean, that was insane.
Yeah, no, the original ending that they shot was Alex, when he grabs the electrical cords on the car, they kill him.
Oh, wow.
It kills him, which theoretically, I guess, since he started the process, ended the loop. And so Kimberly lived, and then Carter was alive, and then the movie picks up, and you can see this on the DVD extras, I think, picks up like 10 months later, and Clear has had a baby, because there was a sex scene in the movie that is in the movie where, they go to the beach and have a serious talk and then fuck.
That was a sex scene? I didn't know that.
No, yeah, it's on the DVD extras.
Oh, okay.
And so she ends up having a baby that she names Alex, and it ended on a very like kind of uplifting, kind of spiritual, like, for yes, Alex is dead, but his spirit lives on through this child. And Carter shows up to check in on her, and the audiences just hated the ending. Like, that's when test screening comes in. They love the movie, hated the ending, and the ending really dictates how people leave the movie theater feeling. And they were like, well, is she with Carter now? Like, he was an asshole. Why is he alive and Alex is dead?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. So Bob Shea, like, was like, we need to reshoot the ending.
Man.
And they came up with this whole ending in France, which I fucking love.
Yeah.
Love the ending that they came up with. Because, you know, in my original script, it ended, she was pregnant. I had her pregnant. You think she's escaped death, but then this is original script, not the shooting script.
Yeah.
And she ends up giving birth, and the minute she gives birth, you kind of see, like, a la Evil Dead, you see, like, the camera kind of whooshing through the hosptal, like death is coming for her, which was kind of a downer still. No, wait, so, yeah, but yeah, the new ending's great, you know.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That scene when he's like, if I just saved you, who's next? And you see the billboard just swinging behind him. It's just like, it's just one of those moments where it never loses its impact.
Yeah.
Like, you always feel that anxiety, like, oh my gosh, he's going to die, you know? Okay, so, gosh, let's talk about Bloodworth. Okay, so this is what I thought for years, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I always thought that Bloodworth might have been death because he has too much knowledge, right? Like, I understand that he's a mortician, but he has too much inner working knowledge. So is there something supernatural about Bloodworth, or is he simply just a guy that happens to be imbued with this knowledge?
You know what? There is no definitive on, and I'm not trying to be coy.
Oh, you're gonna do this to me, really?
No, because I'm not. No, if I was being coy, I'd be coy and tell you I'm being coy. But I'm not being coy. There's purposely no definitive answer.
Okay, I can accept that.
Because originally, in the original script that I wrote, the Bloodworth character was this character named Randall who had been through something similar so he shows up in the movie to kind of give them the information download about what's coming after them. But I love the idea that, you know, they brought Tony Todd in as this mortician who's close to death and seems to know about death. But they wanted to leave that intentionally up to interpretation because, you know, there's a lot of people that think he is death. There's a lot of people that think he's a harbinger of death. There's a lot of people that think he's just so close to it, he's on the other side. So, you know, Tony is such speaking of, like, we talking about blessings, like, I've been a fan of Tony's forever, you know, like Candyman, obviously, the Night of Living Dead remakes, Star Trek, like everything, like I love Tony Todd.
He's a talented actor.
So, and I saw him do a one-man show in LA, like a one-man show, 90 minutes playing the first African-American welterweight champion.
Oh, wow.
90 minutes of Tony Todd on a stage, tearing it up, going from like sad and innocent to like angry and you know, just, I mean, he's just a powerhouse actor. All that to say, to get him in, to have him in your first movie, is amazing. You know, just amazing. So they've intentionally kept a lot of mystery around who his character is. And I don't know if we'll ever have an answer.
I mean, he's still alive, and I like the character, so I guess that's fine. I'm glad that you were open and honest about it. You weren't being ambiguous to be ambiguous, but I always thought that either he's part of it or part of it.
I think fans have different interpretations. Tony may have his own interpretation of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, as an actor, he may have his interpretation of it. I just know, like, for the movie franchise itself, they have not definitively said what he is, and I think part of that mystery is cool because it leaves it open to people to interpret it, you know.
Okay, so have you ever met a Final Destination fan on a flight?
Not on a flight, because it's always a weird thing. I shouldn't say that. I have talked to people on flights where it ends up coming up, like, what do you do? I always try not to mention Final Destination because, God forbid, I get, like, the person that's their first time flying and they were afraid of falling on a plane. So
it's meant to be.
Yeah, so I try not to mention that. But it's come up on it has come up in a couple of conversations. over the years, but I honestly try not to, because I'm just like, I don't want this person to start hyperventilating and be like, oh my God.
Okay, if I'm ever on a flight, which I'm not because I'm afraid of flying. My mom said she hates you, by the way. She says that I won't fly because of you. So I don't know what you're supposed to do with that information, but at least you know it.
Well, if I can just tell you, I have a feeling that you'll never have to worry about being on a plane. Like, nothing will happen to you if you fly.
I'm terrified of flying. You see, my whole thing is like, you can get into a fender bender on the road, but if you get into a fender bender in the sky, it just doesn't work. You know what I mean?
If you look statistically, plane crashes are so rare that you have a much bigger chance of dying driving to work every day than you do.
True, but the probability of survival seems to be low, and that's what frightens me. And I think it's a matter of control as well. The fact that I'm not responsible for, like, like Carter said, I die when I want. I'm never going to die. I'm going to live forever, right? Well, I like to have control of being in the plane, you know what I mean, or the car. So, Okay. So, let's talk about Final Destination 6, if you know anything. So let's just start with this. Do you have any involvement in the creation?
No involvement in the creation. I do know, kind of general what's, I know that they were developing, a script before COVID happened. COVID threw everything up in the air. I know that there are conversations about doing a new one. And again, I'm not trying to be coy. It's just,
No, you're awesome.
just see online all the time where people are like, no, they're working. They're in the development stages of doing a sixth one. I mean, any kind of horror property. I hate to talk about it like that, but that's the business side of it. There's obviously a hungry fan base out there for a new one, and I know that the people involved want to do it. It's just going to be a matter of when the business kind of really picks back up again, and when the COVID stuff is not a pain in the ass. So there will be another one at some point, and once it's not like once I find out when it's going to happen, I'm going to run blabbing it, because
no, of course, yeah, of course, yeah.
But they won't make a secret about it when they're going forward. Like, they will let people know, and it is something that's being actively pursued. It's just we don't know the timing of it.
So through my research to interview, I found out that you had some involvement in writing a Final Destination novelization called, what is it? Looks Could Kill. Can you tell us anything more about that?
I didn't write on that. Some of the stuff on the internet cracks me up. Because apparently I was at some, it says that on Wikipedia that I was involved in some show that I wasn't involved in, but that's okay.
Damn Wikipedia.
Yeah, no, I didn't write anything. They may have used an idea or something that I had from one of my trips for it or something. I don't know. But yeah, though I did. The only writing I've done is I partnered up with Jonathan Doyle, who's one of the co-screenwriters on my movie The Final Wish. We did a novelization of Tamra, my film Tamra.
Oh, you made that?
Yeah.
That was actually really good. I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that a while ago, back in 2007.
Because, they watered the movie down a lot, so the novelization has all the stuff that wasn't in the movie. So I'm very proud of that. And I always joke, because this is just life in general, but, like, all my friends are like, we're so going to buy this book when it comes out on Amazon. So going to buy it. And I was like, I can see how many copies of the book have sold on Amazon, right? So y'all didn't go out and buy the book, but that's okay.
Let your words match your actions. I know we're all guilty of not doing that, but
yeah.
Okay, so all right, so last year you wrote and directed your directorial not your writer debut, but your directorial debut, Don't Look Back.
Yeah.
Okay, let me give you some of my thoughts. I love automatically how it starts off aggressively. I also love the theme throughout the film, how just because you're a bystander doesn't mean you're not guilty. So what made you want to tackle that aggressive subject? Because it's such a unique idea.
It was a couple of things. There was the story of this woman, Kitty Genovese, who was assaulted in I think it was upstate New York. And this happened back in I should know the year. It happened in the 70s, maybe. It was a while back, but it was a story that I heard in Kentucky. And the story at the time was that she was assaulted in the courtyard of her apartment complex, and like 20 people watched and nobody helped. And the guy assaulted her, left, came back and assaulted her again, and then killed her. And that story has always horrified me. And throughout the years, as I've gotten older, I've noticed, I just seem to notice that people seem to have less and less empathy for each other. And I've been in, like, I never tell anybody, like, if you see somebody with a gun, like, tackle them. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But we've gotten to an era now where when people see something horrible happening, their first instinct is to film it and put it online.
World Star Hip Hop.
Like, did you call the police? When you picked up your phone, did you dial 911? No, we just filmed it. So that's just a theme that has really stuck with me for a long time. And originally, I was going to do this as more of a straight up karma, almost like in the vein of Final Destination, where like the reasons they didn't help come back on them threefold. But, I was dealing with the producer at the time, and the producer's like, why don't you, like, that's the easy way to go. Like, why don't you do it where we're not sure if it's supernatural or if it's a killer? And I was like, that sounds more interesting creatively. It limits what I can do in the movie because I can't show the killings, because if you show the killings, you're going to tip your hat one way or the other. So I knew I was making kind of a thriller more than a horror film, because it wasn't going to have the horror elements in it. And we ended up shooting it like independently, down in Louisiana. Great experience. I'm actually happy with, like, I'm actually genuinely happy with the film. Yes, if I had my druthers, I would have loved to have done the karmic version with blood and viscera flying everywhere. Well, no, I shouldn't say that, because I have many opportunity. Like, my next movie is going to have a lot of horror and blood in it. But I guess what I'm saying is, I knew going in, the fans, because I can't help but think about how the fans are going to react. I'm like, all right, this is the first thing I'm directing. They're automatically going to think Final Destination. They're going to expect a lot of blood and big set pieces. A, we don't have the budget for big set pieces. B, again, like, I can't, this is more of a what's doing it,
Yeah.
So it's more of, it really is more about unraveling this mystery than it is about the kills. So it helped in a way, because the people that really like the film like that. But then, especially a lot of the horror sites and stuff were like, he did Final Destination, he should know we go to see blood and guts in these movies. And I'm like, I knew I can't bitch about it, because I knew going in the outcome.
Right.
So I'm happy with how it came out, because I got to tell a story that was about something, and not just without the blood and the guts.
I do want to say you did tackle both elements very well, because when the film kind of wraps up, you get both of that.
I know.
I don't want to say too much, because I want to keep it vague, because I don't want to tip my hat the way you put it one way or another either. But you did a good job, and it was really well written. I really enjoyed it. It was actually really fun. So was it a challenge to go from the writing chair to the directing chair? Like, how did you balance the two? How did you balance that? How did you do? Okay.
Well, I have to say, like, this was such a great first experience, because it taught me. I will say I went in with a little cocky, because I've been on the sets of pretty much every one of my films, and I've gotten to know the directors, and I've talked to them. So you think it's a lot easier. You don't think it's easy, but you think you know everything from being on set and talking to directors. But until you're actually doing it yourself, especially for like an indie kind of film, you have no idea what you're in for until you do it. So I feel like I went to like filmmaker boot camp, and it was great. The writer was very helpful, because there were just days where it's like we don't have the time to like shoot all this stuff. So I would have to like run off and like combine like three scenes into one scene. So as a writer, it was easier for me to do that, because I knew how everything tied together. But then again, it's sometimes you have to cut the stuff that you like, and so there were a lot of stuff with the secondary characters that had to go, which, I was like, well, we just don't have the time and the money to shoot some of these subplots. So it ended up, you have to keep the focus on your main characters. So, it, you do wish that you could have built up some of the other characters a little bit more. And just a lot of some of the nuanced stuff with scenes, like we had to cut a lot of scenes. So then it's like, okay, well, you're just focused on the meat and potatoes right now.
Right.
So that, like, there was one funny thing, like, we shot all the scenes in the house with Caitlin's our lead character and her partner Josh. Like, we shot all the stuff in the house in this 1 week because we had the location. And in the script, their scenes are spread out all, throughout a 95-page script. But I noticed, like, in one scene he's cooking breakfast for her, in another scene I have him bringing in lunch, and another scene I had him bringing. I'm like, he's always bringing her food. You don't think that when you're writing the script, because you're not visualizing. You're not laying down the whole movie in your head.
Right.
You thought it all out, but you're not seeing the visual side of it. So, right. So then it's like, all right, well, he's not bringing her food and he's not cooking here. So, it does teach you how to look at your scripts differently, but you also still have to realize when you're writing a script, unless you're directing it, a director is going to come in with their own vision of what the movie is, which sometimes will be completely opposite of what you thought when you wrote it. So I would say the movie is my movie 100%. It's not 100% of the vision that I had for the movie when I wrote it, because again, you write with like unlimited budget, so you have lots of locations, lots of other characters that we get to follow and see their lives and things like that. So when you're making it, you end up getting confined by what you can do. So yeah. Writing is good because you can adjust quickly and hopefully still have everything track and make sense. Yeah. So I enjoyed it, and I wanted to, my director friends were like, you're either going to not want to direct again after doing it or you do. And I have several other scripts that I definitely want to direct. So it was a really good experience.
So I have to ask, so you say you want to direct, but do you want to write and direct? Do you want to do both in tandem again, or do you want to just focus on one versus the other next time?
I have stuff that I've already written that I want to direct.
Oh, so wow. Okay, so you're in it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd set out to. I shouldn't say that. If I read a really good script, it's just part of the reason I wanted to direct is a lot of my scripts have been made, but the director's vision is different than what I wrote. And that's okay if it's like if it's a great unique vision, but sometimes it's been like, oh, I kind of told you, like, you should have focused on, you know what I'm saying? Like, just as a fan, like, I'm like, I told you, like, this was going to get us in trouble, and it got us in trouble. So
yeah.
But I want to also make sure I have like bigger budgets going forward because the stuff that I want to do is more elaborate and has just more characters and things in them. So, but yeah, when you write something, you visualize the movie in your head anyway. So that's why I think it's easier for me to do it. But if I read a script that I loved, I would totally come on board to direct it.
That's awesome.
But I also want to get more into acting too. I'm not getting any younger, so I've got to start.
Dude, you're aging well, man. You said you were 50, right? I think last time we spoke, you said you were 50. Is that correct?
52.
You look great, honestly.
I will say that's part of my people of color privilege that I have.
I love it. People of color privilege.
Yeah, like that's, people get all annoyed at that privilege. It's not about money. Privilege is about certain things you have by merit of who you are. And I do have some gray hairs, but I don't look my age and I don't feel my age, but the looks are all the melatonin in my skin. So I'm very, 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 very blessed.
Right on. Okay, so let's take it to things you have coming out in the future. You got a few projects coming out. Can you tell us about Steadfast, the Thornton Chase story? Can you also tell us about your TV series Samurai's Rabbit and Cloudland? Would you like to touch on this?
I can tell you the Thornton Chase story it's a short, and it's available online. It's about the first American Baha'i I'm a member of the Baha'i faith, and Thornton Chase was the first person in America.
What is Baha'i?
It's basically it's the newest of the world's religions. It's been around. I'm going to do a horrible job at this. It's been around for about 160 years, 150 years. It started in the Middle East, and basically, if big picture, we believe in something called progressive revelation. So we believe that throughout time, God has sent different manifestations down to teach us lessons for that time. So we believe that, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, we believe they are all manifestations of God who have come down to teach us social lessons that kind of match the times that we're in. And we believe that the latest manifestation came 150 years ago. And the basic teachings are the oneness of religion, that all religions stem from the same divine source. So one is not right or wrong. They're all part of the same thing. Equality of the races, which, again, 150 years ago was not something that was taught. Equality of men and women, which 150 years ago in the Middle East was not something that was being taught.
Right.
They're all social lessons, obviously, like eliminating extremes of wealth and poor. So they're all social teachings leading to the fact that humanity is equal and is one. So it's trying to unite humanity. And Thornton Chase was the first American Baha'i, so we wanted to do like a documentary on him.
Oh wow!
They just told his life story, but it was done. It's a short, so it's not like a full length documentary. But we did that to celebrate the anniversary of his passing. So
is that on YouTube? I'm guessing is that available there?
You can find that on YouTube. Yeah, and it's just a nice like artistic rendering of kind of his story.
Wow, sounds interesting.
Yeah, and so really proud to work on that. 2 cartoons that I worked on for Netflix. One is called A Tale Dark and Grim, which is going to be coming out.
I think I've heard of that. Yeah,
October. It's based off a book series. Really wonderful animated show. Had a wonderful team working on that. The book is amazing, and the first season deals with Hansel and Gretel.
Oh wow!
And their adventures trying to find the perfect family. Usagi, Samurai Rabbit, the Usagi Chronicles, is a spin-off of the Japanese comic book Usagi Yojimbo. Oh. So, we have the creator of the comic book behind that 100%, and can't talk much about it.
Are you writing the script, or are you directing?
We actually have written the first 2 seasons of it. So
oh wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, so it's being worked on right now. James Wan is executive producing it. So, yeah, so I'm really excited. It was so funny because both of these projects came up during COVID, and they're animated, and they're not, they have a little, because despite me loving to like murder people on screen, like I'm a big softy inside. And the shows have like some spooky stuff in them. Well, Usagi doesn't. It's just crazy fun adventure, but it's got humor and it's got heart. And that's, the showrunners, Doug and Candy Langsdale from Grimm, actually asked me to come over on Usagi with them.
Nice.
I had a wonderful time working in the animated space, and I'm working on I think they've announced it. Yeah, they have announced. I had to make sure that I don't say anything that's not been announced, so I get in trouble.
Right.
I'm doing an animated feature based on this book series called The Adventures of Young Captain Nemo, which is really fun. So I'm in the middle of writing that as well. So I went from killing folks to doing some kid stuff, and then I'm going to get back to murdering folks as soon as I can.
Okay, so you're too funny. All right, so if budget wasn't a factor, okay. Yeah. What would be your dream project? And keep in mind, you can have any capacity you want. You can write it, you can direct it. It's your project. It could be a horror movie. It can be a drama. I mean, hell, you could remake The Godfather for all I care. Just what would be your dream project if budget wasn't a factor?
Oh my God, I have 2. Can I have 2 dream projects?
You can have 5. Have as many as you want. Go ahead.
I mean, I would love to do a Dream Warriors movie.
Oh, so in for that. I want to see that.
But I would also love to do a Storm movie because she's my favorite X-Men.
She's badass, yeah. She's really hot too.
Badass, and she's got a story, and I don't know why the fuck they haven't made a solo movie with her. I'm going to start pushing that one. But those would be my 2 dream projects.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, Jeffrey Reddick. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure talking with you. You're amazing. It's an honor to have you on my channel. As you know, I'm a huge fan. I've been geeking out the entire time. Guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Please follow him on Instagram. Please binge
Twitter,
the Final Destination franchise.
I'm
follow him on Twitter.
I'm too boring on Twitter. I mean, on Instagram. It's cat pictures.
And as always, guys, please subscribe. Thank you.
Thank you.